There are things, Maria, that will happen to us at the time. They appear to be bad for us.
Yes.
Life is lived going forward, but we
Yes.
learn from it looking back. Had I
Yes.
not been fired from radio, I would have never became a state representative. Had my mother not been diagnosed with breast cancer, I would not have been able to reach over 3 billion people around the world, speaking in over 60 countries. I would not have become this person that I
Hmm.
am now. And so your mantra, look for the upside, is major because it gives people the capacity, the power to hold on, knowing that better times are going to come. Even a broke clock is right twice a day.
I love that. I love that. Hey, everybody, welcome to Finding the Upside. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am in the studio here in Bravery Studios here in New Jersey, and I have a very special guest with me. I have the incomparable, the infamous, well known, and iconic Les Brown. Hey, Les.
Hello, how are you?
I am wonderful. I'm so happy to have you here speaking with me today. Thank you for joining us.
It's an honor to be here, and I love your title because in all situations, we have to look for the upside.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, that's, one of the reasons why I picked that is really finding the upside is really the challenging part, right? But there always is one. So I love that. And I know we're super aligned on that belief. So I am super excited to have you here. I just want to kind of highlight a few points before we get going. Les is a motivational speaker. He's been a politician. He's an author. He was a broadcaster, had the Les Brown Show. He is world renowned and he's been inspiring generations for over 50 years of people on the digital platform in the traditional sense and inspiring them to capture what's special about them and bring out the greatness within. Did I get that right, Les?
Yes, you got to be hungry for greatness.
There you
Yes.
go. There you go. I am super, super excited to get into the conversation with you about all things. But training is a big part of, my work. And I think there's been a climate for a long time, at least in the business world, where we rely on doing the same things. And, one of the things that I am really passionate about is I'm a status quo breaker. Like there's always a better way. There's always more to learn. There's always a new way. There's always more innovation. And I say that from a business sense, but I also say that in our own lives, really being able to go after and upskill your own ability, learn something new. Even in my role as a leader and running companies, you know, there's so much that I don't know. There's so much that I have to learn and so much that I've allowed myself to learn. But, again, you've got to have that mindset and be open to it. And I'm the first one that says, I don't know how to do that. So we're going to figure out how to do that. We're going to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. You mentioned AI, and I agreed. You've got to either expand or be expendable. That's amazing. I love that line. But I also think there's a little bit of a belief that maybe people think, well, AA is coming and, there's nothing we can do about it. That might be true, but there is something you can do about it. And it's becoming more than you are today.
You can
And it,
use it as an ally as
yeah,
opposed to seeing it as an enemy because
exactly.
that we all have to be involved in a process. And this is what your show is about. It's how to make your life AI proof. We're going
Yeah,
through creative destruction.
yeah.
I remember as a kid, I used to work on an elevator. I was an elevator boy. People get on the elevator, and I asked, "What floor, please?" And I closed the door manually and pushed the button. Then somebody created an elevator that did not require someone to be on there. I used to work in
Mhm,
a bowling alley. And
mhm.
as a kid, when people knocked the pins down, me and other kids would straighten the pins back up. Someone created an electronic tray that eliminated our jobs. I
Mhm.
remember if you wanted to make a long distance call, we had to call a long distance operator.
Yes.
That day is gone. We can call direct. So we're going through creative destruction at an accelerated rate.
Yeah.
However, when you think about artificial intelligence, it's a scraper. It can only get stuff that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I came up during the time of Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't nothing like the real
Real
thing,
thing,
baby.
baby.
Okay.
That's for sure.
So so that what we have, our experiences, the things that you've gone through, that AI can't touch that because it's not out there. We
Yeah.
were created by the creator to create. So we are now in a position that we have to not just react, but to create, use artificial intelligence to amplify our work, to promote our causes, our businesses, to use it as an asset to do the
Mm-hmm.
things that we want to do more efficiently. And it's
Mm-hmm.
going to create new levels of achievement and thinking and new economies. And that's part of the process of looking for the upside.
Yeah. Well, 100%. And, well, as you were saying that and you were making that commentary, I was thinking about all of the things that I've seen, even in my working, life. As I said, I started. When I say this, people are like, "You're not that old." I'm like, no, I'm not. But like that just shows how much has happened in my working life. We didn't have PCs on the desks. We didn't have a computer. We certainly didn't have the little phone sitting next to us, that we were reachable at every second. I didn't grow up like that. I didn't even start in my working career that way. You had whole industries. I worked in New York City for 20 years. Back when I started, in order to get some paperwork down to somebody, quickly, you had messengers. You had a guy that rode on a bike with a backpack on, and that
Mhm.
whole business. Anybody who had that business, anybody who did that job, that's extinct. I worked in broadcast. I worked for television rep firms. With all the deregulation, there are no television rep firms anymore. Why? Because one company now can own multi stations across the country, and the FCC prohibited that before. So there's always that regeneration, and there's always that extinction. You talked about your experience and elevator, and all those things that kind of became extinct and replaced. That's been happening for decades. So we're just in this more rapid ascension now, and just understanding that it can be a partner and it can be a tool. It doesn't have to be looked at as an enemy. And quite frankly, I think that is what will help us more than hurt us.
Yes. I read a book years ago, Alvin Toffler, called Future Shock. And he
Mm,
predicted that things are going to be changing so quickly that we're going to be in a state of shock.
yeah.
And we are.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. It's exciting. I love what Helen Keller said. She said, life is either a daring adventure or it's boring. And
Yes.
we are living in a time where we want to make our lives a daring adventure, to live a life that will outlive us, to look for ways on the things and possibilities and the things that we see now, and look for the upside on how we can live a life that will outlive us, to have a greater impact for
Yeah.
generations yet unborn.
Yeah, it is so important. You talk about that, the impact. That's one of the things that, and I'm curious if I may ask you this question. In my probably the last 10 to 15 years, maybe even 20, I started thinking about that. What kind of impact do I want to have? With my work, with my life. And I guess that's a thing that you get to when you get to a certain point, and in age. We talked about the wisdom before, but like I remember working in a capacity where I felt like I really wasn't having the impact and leaving the legacy that I wanted, and I wanted more meaningful work. What I didn't realize, and of course, like, I'm super passionate about what I do, and I'm super happy about the pivot that I took, and the redirection, if you will, that happened for me. But I guess what I didn't realize is that we have the ability in all moments, in all capacities, to have an impact on others. And really leaning into that, what I didn't realize is, somebody said it to me, well, what do you mean this work isn't meaningful? You are leading other people. You are standing in their belief gap. You are teaching them. Your words mean something that you say. Now, of course, if you do that in a negative way, then that's not a great impact, but you don't. You do it in a positive way. So now looking back on that, I didn't realize, the power that was within me, that I could kind of help and impact others. Did you in your early years recognize that, or were you just following this like nudge or this path that you kind of realized later, as I did, like what you were doing and the impact that you were having?
I did not know it in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quote that I anchor myself on, Leo Tolstoy, who's a Russian writer. He
Mm-hmm.
said, as I face inevitable death, what in the meaning and purpose of my life that will not be undone or destroyed when I'm gone?
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is, I told a reporter who asked, what do you want said about you when you go? I said, I want them to say, I aspire to inspire until I expire.
Mm.
And I told my children, when they tell you that I have died, don't let them embalm me for 3 days and then sneak in the morgue and put a microphone in my hand. If I don't grab it and say, you got greatness in you, you got to be hungry, call your brothers and sisters and say, Daddy's gone. How you know? I put a microphone in his hand. He didn't say nothing.
Oh
So
my
when you
goodness.
live your life the way you want to live your life, when you make a commitment, as you have, to live a life that will outlive you, encouraging people to look for the upside through everything that they're facing, I believe that that's what life is about. They asked
Yeah.
Einstein, "What's the purpose of mankind?" And he said, "The purpose of mankind is to serve mankind. That we were created to serve each other." And scripture says the greatest among you will be your servant. And you are serving people by doing the greater work of encouraging people to look for the upside. Don't stand around and complain about things going on and criticizing things. There's never been a statue erected to a critic. In
Mm.
life, you're the part of the solution or you're part of the problem.
Mm.
So kudos to you for this greater work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I know that one of the things that I definitely strive to do every day, I'm sure you do as well, for how you live your life, is to, of course, always look at things with optimism. But in the climate we're in right now, it is sometimes very difficult to do that. And I also just, you spent some time in politics. I'm just curious what your thoughts are of how where we are at today, and just some commentary on that, and how to continue to move forward in a way that keeps us not getting brought down by the things that are happening around us. I know it is kind of quintessential in your thought process of, and mine too, always being optimistic, looking for the upside, looking of how we can move humanity forward, of how we can serve others, of how we can inspire others. But just if you might kind of comment on where we're at politically, in our society, just some of the things that are going on and how we navigate that, so that we can continue to prosper and, have impact in a positive way.
This too shall pass. Life
Yeah.
is cyclic. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't go well. It's cyclic. And understanding that, being patient, being persistent, and understanding that don't define what's possible based upon what's going on now. That we
Mm.
have within us to take a stand, to be relentless and unstoppable, and being willing to persevere to get to the other side of the Red Seas that we are now facing.
Yeah.
Life is always going to be happening. And that's how we grow.
Yeah.
I never forget when I was diagnosed by Dr. Alfred Golson, who was an incredible oncologist. He said, Mr. Brown, he said, I got some bad news for you. I said, what is it, sir? He said, you have cancer.
Mm.
I said, I do? He said, yes. Now, when you say those words, you have cancer, those three most feared words in 7 different languages.
Yeah.
And I asked, is there anything else? He said, yes. He said, you've got prostate cancer and your PSA is 2,400.
Wow.
I said, what does that mean? He said, 1 to 4 is normal. And I asked him, I said, is there anything else? He said, yes. It's metastasized to 7 areas of your body.
Mm.
I said, wow. He said, did you hear what I said? I said,
Mm.
yes. I said, man, I was born February the 17th. 7 is my lucky number. I'm one of 7 children. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times. Naaman dipped himself in the river Jordan 7 times. 7 is my lucky number. I said, is there anything else? He said, yes. I said, what is it? He said, you're ugly too. I said, ugly? You didn't call me ugly. I said, this is serious. He said, yes, but you got this. I never tell my patients they're terminally ill. What I say is that my skill set has terminated. I determine the diagnosis. You and God determine the
Yeah.
prognosis.
Yeah.
You got a
Wow.
fight on your hands. I said, thank you so much. That was so very important
Yeah.
because with the laughter, he distracted me from my fear and activated my faith when he said, my skill set is terminated. I determine the diagnosis. You and God determine the prognosis. And I teach life is a fight for territory. And once you stop fighting for what you don't want will automatically take over. And I resolve within myself this 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 award from Cancer Centers of America, 39 years, 4th stage cancer conqueror from Cancer Centers of America, which is now called
Wow.
the City of Hope. So when there's hope in the future, that gives you power in the present. And what gives you the capacity to do that? And that is relentlessly and tenaciously looking for the upside in the middle of the storm.
Yeah. Yeah. And really you've brought it right back to that, right? It's like in the middle of chaos, in the middle of, distraught circumstances, in the middle of sadness, in the middle of loss, there is always a way forward. But it's seeing it that's important. And I loved what you said about that he distracted you from your fear, so he ignited your faith. And really, like, those are serious circumstances that you faced, but really that applies to all things, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
really grounding yourself in that faith and letting that be what pulls you forward. And that's amazing. I'm so happy that you took that on and that fight, because I think your attitude obviously played a big part of getting to the other side of that. And I think that's a message for all people, to face things with optimism and faith,
Hmm.
for sure. So, what, if I might ask, for the short time that you spent as a Congress member, House Representative,
I was a state representative in
this
Columbus, Ohio. I was
state
elected from the
representative?
29th House District. Yes.
Wow.
I was elected to 3 terms, and midway of my 3rd term, I got a call from my sister, and she asked, "Are you sitting down, Leslie?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Mama has breast cancer." I said,
Oh,
"I'll be right there." She said, "Les, you just got reelected to the higher legislature. You're the chairman of the Human Resource Committee and the Education Committee." I said, "Listen to me. I'll be right there. You don't have to come. We have nice nursing homes here in Miami." I said, "Listen, I promised Mama that I would take care of her. She would not go to a nursing home." And I just had a problem. How can one woman, single mother, 3rd grade education, raise 7 children she didn't give birth to, but 7 grown people couldn't take care of one woman? I said,
wow.
hell to the no. And
Mm-hmm.
I resigned from the Ohio legislature, went back to Miami. I rang the doorbell. A friend of hers named Miss Mildred was there. She came to the door. She said, "Oh my God, Leslie, you're here." And I heard my mother ask, "Mildred, who's at the door?" And she said, "Mamie, it's Leslie." And I heard my mother say, "I knew he would come.
Ah,
I knew my boy would come." And and so that changed my life. There are
mm-hmm.
things that can happen that could
Yeah.
change the direction of your life. I was planning on running for statewide office. I enjoyed it. I passed 14 bills my first term.
Wow.
I enjoyed politics, but I love my mama. I'm a mama's boy. I always say that God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother.
Ah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, that's certainly like a beautiful story, and definitely like then telling it and looking back at it that that was just the trajectory of your life that was probably meant to be. I think a lot of us
Yes,
might have
there are
those
things, I'm
conditions.
glad you mentioned that. There are things, Maria, that will happen to us at the time. They appear to be bad for us.
Yes.
Life is lived going forward, but we
Yes.
learn from it looking back. Had I
Yes.
not been fired from radio, I would have never became a state representative. Had my mother not been diagnosed with breast cancer, I would not have been able to reach over 3 billion people around the world, speaking in over 60 countries. I would not have become this person that I
Mhm.
am now. And so your mantra, look for the upside, is major because it gives people the capacity, the power to hold on, knowing that better times are going to come. Even a broke clock is right twice a day.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Well, one of the things that I also wanted to get your take on, one of the things that I speak on a lot is, of course, leadership and this concept of rebel leadership that we talked about. And I know that that that's part of my mission. But I also, you know, in communicating, you talked about communicating, having people understand. One of my missions also as a trainer, as a teacher. Being able to draw the lines and help people understand and really connect with the message. One of the things that I have started to speak about is that uh, one of the things in creating a community and creating a culture that works inside a company, companies that I work with, my own company as well, is really this bringing this humanity back into creating this support system and really creating a place where people feel like they belong is like the basic foundation. Inclusion, of course, including all people, all from all backgrounds, all differences, all different learning types, all different ways of looking, being, etc. But a lot of people struggle with that concept because they
Well, I
feel
think
like
that
it's,
I think there's another level.
yeah,
Yes, that a leader has the ability to take people to a place in themselves that they
yes,
can't go by themselves.
yes,
There's an old saying, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him
and make
drink.
them drink.
But a leader who's effective can create the thirst through their leadership style where they want to drink, and
Yeah,
that people become self-persuaded to
yes,
buy into the vision. If I tell you you have greatness in you, you may or may not believe me. But if I can communicate with you in a way where you, out of your inner conviction and share the vision of what I see in you, say, I can do that. That's
mm-hmm,
what leaders do, is be able to bring out of people that which they are not able to bring out of themselves. And part of that process is being a perpetual student and
yes,
knowing them and learning them and watching them and studying them. Because when we talk to people, they have conversations that's going on in their minds, things about themselves, things about the job, things in their personal life, their family life, the noise of the world. And
mm-hmm,
so being able to speak through the noise and being able to create a committed listening through the weapons of mass distraction so that they can hear you and
Hmm.
act on the vision that you're painting is major to now. It's a different space. We have never seen a time in my lifetime at 80 with so much chaos and disruptions, and every day there's something.
Yeah.
Every day. And so leaders really have to know how to create, when they communicate, a significant emotional event. That's the only time people are transformed. When you are able to create a significant emotional event. A lot of leaders focus on providing information.
Yeah.
They can get the information from Chat GPT. If
Yeah.
information could change people, everybody would be skinny, rich, and happy. It's about being able to create that committed listening by speaking to the heart.
Yes. Yes. As you said, making them feel that and really being able to allow them to feel like you heard them, you understand them, you see them, and really creating that. I liken it to being, welcoming people into your home. I feel like your company and a business and your team, we want to welcome people into our home. We're going to offer them a drink. We're going to say, come on in, you're welcome here, I see you. And really understanding that hospitality, that concept of hospitality, which is very simple and not abstract, is really, I think, the foundation of being able to connect with people, because when they feel
Yes.
comfortable, then you can communicate with them. If
Yeah, they
I always
want to be
say,
seen, they want to
yeah,
be heard, and they want to be valued. They want to
exactly.
know, do I matter to you?
Yeah. Yeah, there's an interesting exercise that I do when I'm training leaders there, where I do it on purpose, where I ask them, we have a conversation about what makes a leader great. And I make them envision somebody who they think was a great leader and what are the traits and characteristics. And people name all kinds of things. And we go through a little discussion, and I put them in the seat of the observer, because it's much easier for people to see that in other people than see that in themselves. And also to be self-critical, they often can't see it. So then they'll name all kinds of things. Oh, you have to be a great communicator. Oh, you have to be a teacher. You have to be positive. You have to be humble. No ego. Okay, what happens if that's there, if that's not there? And we go through this whole discussion. And then there's maybe 20 or 30 different traits on the board that we discuss. And I say, now look at these words. These are your words. Now it's time for you to turn the mirror on yourself and ask if you have those traits as a leader. And then sometimes they're like, because it's not just saying we're humble or saying we're positive or saying we're a great supporter or teacher. It's how you're demonstrating that. And so allowing that discussion to have them be that observer is, then they have that experience where they understand. And the reason also why I started talking about this is, as a trainer, they can't learn from me unless they feel comfortable. If I've gotten to that place where they're able to listen and really take in and experience, what I'm offering to them. But I find that I've done that exercise thousands of times, and the traits are always the same.
That's a
and
very good
and
exercise because
yeah,
it's about, people say practice what you preach, and what you're doing in that exercise, preach what you practice.
yeah, yeah. And people also, like, the basic bottom line is, when you ask people, why did you work hard for this person or that person as a leader? If I tell them, who was your best boss, or who was the best person you worked for, mostly they felt like they were seen and they felt like they were cared for. Like, that person had my back. He cared about my best interest. He had my best interest at heart, or she had my best interest at heart. We can't motivate or get the best from people unless we're able to connect on that level with them, for sure.
You're absolutely right.
Well, Les, this has been such a pleasure and an honor. I so appreciate talking with you. I could talk all afternoon, but
Well,
we
thank
have
you.
come
I'm
to the—
glad that Lady T got us together.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Lady T connected us, and I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much for everything you shared. A lot of what you mentioned, the books that Les mentioned, and also the way to connect with Les, I will put in the show notes. So I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait for the next conversation we have, because I'm just teeing that up now.
I love it. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. See you on the next episode of Finding the Upside. Bye for now.